What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the Travelers Championship. Before we get into that, it is giveaway time again. So we'll start this back up. If you'd like to win a month subscription to dfsondemand.com, which is my website. It's the site where you're going to see all the stats and tools in this show. Do me a favor, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment below with the best player over $10,000. So you can do that on YouTube. You can do it on the podcast. If you're on the podcast side of it, iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're at, if you're able to leave a 5-star review and a little something in the comments, I will draw one from each of those. We'll give away a free month. You'll get access to the site. You'll come join us in the Slack channel. It will be pretty slick. I recommend you guys subscribe because we are really about to get into some cool stuff. Coming down the pipeline, we're going to talk some sports betting tools, some showdown tools, things that I have been working on over the course of the past few months are about to see the light of day. So we're very close to that in the next couple of weeks, something I've been very excited about. All right, we're going to talk about the Travelers Championship, but before we do that, we really have to talk about the U.S. Open and Pebble Beach. What a perfect tournament. I really believe that's the way the U.S. Open should be played. If you play really well, you can go shoot 10, 12, 13, 14 under par, but there are big numbers lurking everywhere. It's if you're hitting it in the rough, if you're spraying it, if you're hitting it on the wrong side of the greens, you're going to be in big trouble. I really like that setup. It did not feel gimmicky. Pebble Beach was the perfect host. All the big names were in contention. Really, really great stuff. I know a lot of you used the core cascading method and got a bunch of 6 of 6 lineups through. I know there were a bunch of really good bullets out there. I know a handful of you were on Gary Woodland with me. I had a bet on him at 80 to 1 to win it. So things were very, very cool last week. Really enjoyed it. As far as fantasy purposes go, let's go back and look at the live leaderboard, which is obviously now it's static, but is there anything that we can take away from this? And I think there's a few things. Quite honestly, Brooks Koepka is an absolute animal. Tee to green game, best in the field. His putter hovered him right around 0, just did not do enough with the flat stick over the course of 4 days to surpass Gary Woodland, who gained 7 strokes on the green, 8 on approaches, and that was basically his entire week. Just an unbelievable run for Gary. A few other things, the names you're going to hear a lot about, one of them being Victor Hovland. I believe it's Hovland, not Hovland. Played really well. T12 as an amateur at the U.S. Open. This week he turns pro. He can collect that paycheck. Only Brooks Koepka was better than him tee to green last week. We don't really know what Victor's baseline is. Lost nearly 4 strokes putting. We don't know if that's going to be a weekly occurrence because we have very little, almost if any sample size for this kid, but it's going to be interesting to see how his game pans out. He looks like the real deal. And then one other thing I want to point out here, and I tweeted this out, but if you haven't seen it yet, Dustin Johnson, I know he's not in the field this week, but lost 6 strokes putting, which I believe, now I'm going to get this wrong. It's either his worst or second worst putting performance going back like the last 4 seasons. So if you are, if DJ burned you and, only finishing T35 for his price tag is kind of burning you. If he burned you, I think it's okay to kind of forgive and forget. I don't think we're going to see a performance from DJ that bad around the greens, one for a long time or maybe 2 forever, right? That might be one of his worst career tournaments that we see. Okay, let's jump over to the cheat sheet here. And this is almost like a first look. I'm going to go through this with you. I've kind of glanced at it. I have some general ideas, but there's always a little bit of a master's hangover, right? It was such a great week last week. Trying to turn your attention to, TPC River Highlands in Connecticut can be a little bit difficult. But we've got 5 guys over $5,000. It's Brooks Koepka leading the way at 11,800, which seems to be kind of the cap that DraftKings has put out there. In the past, we've seen guys hit the 12K mark, sometimes even more. More recently, 11.8 seems to be the number that they won't go over. Now, maybe Koepka gets there at the Open Championship, something like that, but we just haven't seen anybody get over this 11.8 number, so no surprise to see Koepka there. Cantlay at 11.3, Spieth at 10.7, Molinari 10.3, Jason Day at 10,000. So TPC River Highlands outside of Pebble Beach, and we're talking AT&T Pro-Am Pebble Beach, not U.S. Open Pebble Beach, because U.S. Open Pebble Beach plays a little bit longer. Only the AT&T version of Pebble Beach is shorter than TPC River Highlands. It's like 6,800 yards. It's a par 70, so there's going to be a lot of par 4s. There's a drivable par 4 on the back. I believe it's 15. That is going to introduce some risk reward, guys. The big hitters can probably get there with 3-wood. There's water on the left-hand side, so if you yank it a little bit, if you're a righty, you're in the drink. So it's high risk, high reward, fun little hole coming down the stretch that keeps everybody in it. So what are we going to do at the top here? There's something interesting about Koepka that I think we should address, because I've already seen some questions around this, and I feel like I see this every time we have a major. It's, what do these guys do the week after a major? And I've pulled up Koepka's game logs here, and for the most part, we don't necessarily see Koepka play the week after a major that often. So the PGA Championship just earlier this year, he took about 3 weeks off before he played the RBC Canadian. The Masters, he took about a month off before he played the AT&T Byron Nelson. Going back to last year, PGA Championship, he played 2 weeks later at the Northern Trust. The Open Championship last year, he did follow it up with the RBC Canadian the following week and missed the cut. Now, that's very, very recent history. If you go back to, if you just go back a little bit further on last year, after the U.S. Open that he won, he did come here to Connecticut and finish 19th. So, 19th from Brooks Koepka is not going to be good enough, but at least he contended. There's already this kind of narrative kind of flowing around that, yes, we know Brooks Koepka is being described as a big game hunter, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't care about any other tournament, right? So just wanted to throw that out there. Take it for what it's worth. It's always going to be a small sample size. We don't have a lot of great information. Patrick Cantlay is the name that, I think is going to garner a lot of discussion, and it really should. 11,300. And just look at the numbers here, okay? Just from a strictly strokes gained perspective, which, to me that's the best way to look at this. Comparing him to Brooks Koepka, believe it or not, has gained more strokes off the tee per round just by a hair. Better tee to green, a little worse on approaches, better around the green, better putter, and better total. Now, the caveat to this is Koepka kind of does all of his great work at majors and big events, and both of them had high finishes at the Masters, but the Masters is not measured, so we don't have the shot link data. We don't have the strokes gain data. So both of them did play well at the Masters. But if you look at this coming in, third at the PGA Championship, he won at the Memorial, 21st at the U.S. Open. When we get to the key stats, you're going to see Cantlay's name pop up quite a bit. 15th place finish here last year in Cromwell. Like, this really just does feel like a great spot for him. I suspect he's going to be pretty highly owned, so I don't know what type of leverage you're going to have on him. You might have to make your lineups a little bit differently down a little bit further if you opt to play Cantlay, but the guy is a legit talent on the PGA Tour. I'll run through a couple names quickly here because I want to get to the key stats. I want to get to the strokes gained. I think that's really where we're going to find a lot of what do they call it? I almost call them gems in the rough, diamonds in the rough. Justin Thomas at 9,800, you're going to have to make a decision on. JT burned me last week in a big way, burned kind of everybody who rostered him by missing the cut. The fact that he's $9,800 in this field is almost getting me to bite again. He's got a third place finish here in 2016, but his finishes have been all over the place. He's missed 2 of his last 3 cuts. He finished 20th at the RBC in the middle. This is more of a leverage game theory. Like, when Justin Thomas clicks and gets it right, he's going to be one of the best players in the field in any field that he plays in. With this being, I will say it actually is a pretty good field for a week after a major Travelers Championship, but after the first top 20, 25 guys, it's going to fall off pretty quickly, but the top part of it's really, really good. $9,800 for him to be the 6th most expensive golfer perks my ears up. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'd be interested to hear if anybody's got thoughts on this. It's really like, do you want to be a week late on JT or do you want to be a week early? Okay, Paul Casey's probably going to be the chalk here. $9,500, just absolute elite course history. Second, 17th, 5th, and second last 4 years here at TPC River Highlands. Played well enough at the U.S. Open, kind of closed really well over the weekend to finish 21st. No reason to suspect why he can't compete. I haven't seen his number yet in terms of the betting market, but he might be someone that I actually fire a bet on. A couple other guys down here. Let me see if I scroll down a little bit, see what we can find. There's a couple of other interesting names. Getting Kokrak again. So if you remember, we talked Kokrak up a lot throughout the year. He's played great. He has made us quite a bit of money. I mean, some of our best lineups have included Jason Kokrak. He's been a very good fantasy performer for us this season. $8,300, and we just really haven't seen much of him, right? 23rd at the PGA Championship, that's great. 62nd at the Memorial, hasn't played since. So, I mean, we didn't see him at the U.S. Open. We didn't see him at the RBC. We didn't see him at, the Charles Schwab. I mean, it just feels like it's been a while. And he's got that great approach game. I don't really know what to expect. He missed the cut last year, but made 3 cuts previous to that in a row. I think he's really interesting because your recency bias might get you to Ches Reavie at $8,400 or to Streelman, who's played much better recently, 4th place at the Memorial, or to Charlie Hoffman, who kind of has dominated here at the Travelers before. So I just wonder what that leaves Kokrak's ownership at. He's a guy that I might just keep my finger on the pulse, but I'm trying not to forget. Like, there's no reason to really write him off. It's just we haven't seen much of him, so that usually drives down ownership. And then one guy before we switch. Here's Victor Hovland, by the way, at $7,900. But right here, Ryan Moore at 78. So let's see, Ryan Moore, really one of the better approach players in the field. Where is he? Right here. Sorry. I am all screwed up here. Here we go. Gaining about half a stroke on approaches, coming off of a 33rd place at the Memorial. Missed the cut last year, but has really good course history here. 2016, he was 17th. He went back-to-back top 7s in 14 and 13. He had a 2nd place finish in 2011. The thing that jumped off for me about Ryan Moore was his price was a little bit off. DraftKings usually creates that pricing around the betting market, and it's the favorite is the most expensive golfer, and then it goes down. Moore is when I saw his number, he was about 40-1 to win this event, which should have put him with his peers up around in the $8,400 to $8,500 range. Those are the other guys that are about 40-1 to win this. He's $7,800, so he might be $700-800 cheaper than the other guys who have the same odds to win this event. So he's someone that I think will be popular. He's someone that I think makes a lot of sense from a value standpoint. And I'll probably be rostering him. Obviously, it's early in the week. I have not started constructing things yet, but that was interesting to me when I opened it up and saw him at only $7,800. Just did not match up on the betting market. All right, let's jump over to the course key stats because this is going to be important this week. TPC River Highlands, a fairly unique course because of how short it is, the feature of having a really short par 4 coming down the stretch, and it kind of shows in some of the stats that we have listed as the key stats this week. So the highest correlated stats, again, but we haven't ranked these yet, so these are always going to be popular. Scoring average, strokes gained total, SDFA, and then you see par 4 scoring peek its head up as well. So what that tells me is, the cream tends to rise to the top here. So scoring average, SDFA, strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green, those are always tend to be, at the end of the year, your better players, obviously. And then you get par 4 scoring. So with it being a par 70, and quite honestly, maybe it's just my brain from the majors. I can't remember last time we had a par 70. Last week was a 71. And honestly, if it's been more than 7 days, I can't remember anything. But it feels like par four scoring has not shown up as often as it normally does, or as often as it does in the early part of the season, but it's back. And then if you go strictly to the highest ranked stats, this is where I think it's really more important. But you also get scoring average and strokes gained total. And then here's an interesting one. And I'll tell you why it's interesting in a second. It's bogey avoidance. Bogey avoidance is this course, TPC River Highlands, is the third most important course for avoiding bogeys. And what we've normally seen around bogey avoidance is that it pops up on more difficult courses, courses that you could make a lot of bogeys on. That's not the case here at TPC River Highlands. These greens are going to be slow. The winning score is usually in the high teens, if not getting to 20, 20 under par, that is. So when you actually look at bogey avoidance, it's because you're almost losing ground if you make a par. You're certainly losing ground if you're making bogeys. So instead of that showing up in a week where the course is difficult and it can yield a lot of bogeys, well, here it's showing up on a course that's going to yield a lot of birdies, and you're going to lose significant ground if you make a bogey. So very interesting to see that. So let's look through this from a DraftKings perspective. And we'll go quickly through the scoring average because, quite honestly, it's usually your better players, right? The top four guys are all $9,800 or better. Cantlay's got the best scoring average, Koepka, Justin Thomas, Jason Day. Then you get a little bit of value at Lucas Glover, who candidly probably benefits from that scoring average early in the year and easier tournaments, easier courses. And then you get Casey, Fleetwood, Finau, Ches Reeve. I mean, it's a lot of names that you would expect to see here as far as scoring average goes. So let's jump over to par fours. Having it be a par 70, par four is going to be absolutely critical. And here's three really interesting names again that are just like, of course, like these are guys I'm going to try to get into as many lineups as possible. Cantlay again leads the way. So we've already established Cantlay as best in the field in scoring average, best in the field in strokes gained total. Now he's best in the field in par fours. Koepka right behind him. Justin Thomas coming in third. Again, a little bit of value. Aaron Baddeley. I don't know if I can play Aaron Baddeley, although on a short course, I'd much prefer to play him here than a lot of other places. He does not make a lot of bogeys. He's a pretty good putter. He's going to gain strokes there. He plays his par fours very well. If you're down in the $7,000 range and you need a name, could not kill you for playing Aaron Baddeley. Lucas Glover shows up fifth on this list, and then Abraham Answer is sixth. Bogey avoidance, guys that don't make bogeys, remember the lower number, the better here, and a lot of the same names showing up. So now here's another category that Patrick Cantlay leads the way. He makes a bogey 11.6% of his holes. It's the lowest rate in this field, followed by, you guessed it, Lucas Glover, Aaron Baddeley, Brooks Koepka. Literally, I mean, we are saying the same names over and over and over again. When that tends to happen, those are the guys that end up getting into either my core or just a lot of exposure, depending on how we can start building out these lineups. So really impressive to see these names continue to pop up. I'll show you putts over 10 feet. So putts over 10 feet is how often are they made? This is an okay stat. We're also going to look at strokes gained putting next. But Curtis Luck leads the way here. That's probably a small sample size. Then you get the known putters, right? You get Putnam, Sam Ryder, Jordan Spieth, Jason Day. Day, I think, is kind of sneaky here at $10,000. I'm not sure a lot of guys are going to pay up for him when they can go down, they can go to 98 and get JT. They can go to 95 and get Paul Casey. They can go up to get Spieth or Cantlay if you're going to spend that much. So I think 10,000 is actually a really interesting number for Jason Day. This course seems to be a pretty good fit for him. And then I'll show you strokes gained putting as well, which I think is a better stat compared to putts over 10 feet. And it's a lot of the same names. It's Putnam, Denny McCarthy breaks his way through here, Jordan Spieth, Vaughn Taylor, and that man, Aaron Baddeley again. Are we going to, like, am I going to play Aaron Baddeley this week? Like, is that going to happen? Every time we go through this, it feels like there's one guy that I keep mentioning and he ends up showing up in a lot of my lineups. I think it was Aaron Baddeley. There was a time where Aaron Baddeley was like the first round leader every single week. It was either Ricky Barnes or Aaron Baddeley, where like if they only played golf on Thursday, he would have been the best player on the planet. And then let's just quickly, we'll go with birdie or better here just to kind of show you the guys that fill it up quite a bit. And no surprise here, Thomas, Koepka, Cantlay. Then you get Siwoo Kim. Siwoo Kim shows up. He's only $7,400. Bryson and Jason Day are the next couple guys there. Let's see how this converts into strokes gained. So strokes gained this week. Let's look tee to green. All right. Tee to green by pricing tier. Really interesting. Koepka, Cantlay, vastly superior than the rest of those guys above 10K. JT, even with his poor play recently, still up there. Paul Casey still there. Tommy Fleetwood in that middle range. Here's Victor Hovland. Again, that is the tiniest of sample size. It's I have 10 measured rounds for him. So 10 measured rounds. Obviously, 4 were just last week at the U.S. Open. But kid can really, really play. I don't think this number stays under 8,000 much longer. Let's look at the approach players. A lot of the same guys here. Koepka, Cantlay, Thomas, Casey, they all lead the way. Leishman sneaks his way in. And then down in the middle range, you get Kokrak, Griot, Keegan, and then all the way down is Boo Weekley down at the bottom. All right, here's something I like to do. I want to show you real quick before we sign off here. What we'll do is we'll see the hottest players tee to green. Okay, so tee to green right here. Hottest players over the last 30 days. Victor Hovland is number 1. Again, keep that sample size in mind here. I'm hovering over this, so I'm showing you. Although I will say his last 5 rounds have been awesome. So the 4 rounds at the U.S. Open and then the final round at the Arnold Palmer, he gained 4 strokes tee to green. The other 3 rounds at the Arnold Palmer, he was okay, but nothing too special. But his last 5 rounds on tour have been spectacular. Cantlay also very hot. Brooks Koepka hot. Patrick Reed is showing up here. Let's see what Patrick Reed's doing. His putter must be so bad. Let's see. He gained 2, 4, probably 5, 6, 7 or so, 7 or 8 tee to green at the U.S. Open. I bet you he was really bad putting. Let's see. Let me see if I can find him real quick here. Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed putting. Yeah, lost strokes in 3 out of 4 rounds. Oh man, yeah, he had that round at the Byron Nelson where he lost 5.5 strokes. His putting has not been there. But let's see who else is hot at the moment here. Tee to green. Griot, Casey. Again, this is compared to their baseline, compared to their 2019 baseline. Really cool. Really cool stuff. Okay. I also want to find the coldest putters here. Let's see if we can find somebody. All right. So these are guys that normally putt much better than they have recently. And wow, there's not any really any names I'd play on here. Quite honestly, everyone is under $7,000. JT posting at 7,000, a bunch of guys under 7. JT is the first guy over $7,000. So in the last 30 days, he's losing 1.1 strokes on the greens per round. He's more of a neutral putter, so he's about 1 stroke per round worse than his baseline. If you think that's going to come back, invest in JT. Patrick Reed's area similarly. Patrick Reed is a small winner on putts most weeks. Has been much worse over the course of the last 30 days. And here's Ryan Moore. So there's another name that's probably going to really convince me to play him. He gains about 1/4 of a stroke per round this year, but the last 30 days he's losing about 1/2 stroke. So that's about almost 3/4 of a stroke each round that he should be getting back to his baseline. And if he gets hot, that's a whole nother story. He can show up and with some good course history and being very undervalued at $7,800. He's probably a guy that shows up in quite a few of my lineups and frankly everybody else's lineups, but it might be a good buy. All right, that is it for the preview for the Travelers Championship. Don't forget, we're going to give away a month subscription to DFS On Demand. Come enjoy the site. Join us in the Slack. It'll be sweet. couple ways to enter. Like, subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment below. Tell me the guy over $10,000 that you would most like to play. If you're listening on to the podcast version of this, give it a 5-star review, leave something nice. Tell me who you play over 10,000 and I'll pick one from both sides and we'll get you all set up on the site. Don't forget to tweet me. It's at DFS on demand. Leave those comments below. I will talk to you guys soon. Good luck.